First of all, I wouldn't trade anything for my journey.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying that my journey's been easy, but what I learned is that when I left that corporate job, number one, the job no longer served me, and I was being redirected, right? So
Hmm.
far too often, when things happen in our lives, we tend to allow them to define us versus refining us.
Ooh, yeah.
So this led me on a journey of being redirected so that I could step and live in my purpose. So now I make intentional decisions because I know who I am. When I was in the corporate world, to your point, that hamster, I was performing.
Mm.
But now I get the opportunity to show up,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, to really focus on the person within. I call it my internal leader, and I'm guided by
Mhm.
that versus my external leader, which was the corporate world, and making decisions and choices around what everyone else expected of me.
Uh,
Now I get to make decisions and choices based on my internal leader. Therefore, I am aligned with what I am called to do. So I've been refined versus defined.
Welcome to the Field Podcast this week. I'm your host, Melissa Crook. I've got a new friend here. She and I actually connected a while ago, and through both of our busy schedules, are finally getting to bring her on here and have a conversation today here on the Field Podcast. And I'm so excited to share Eva Kennedy with you. She describes herself as someone who lives in her purpose. She's pursued that. She's very pursuant. She's a servant. She serves especially women. She lives in that. She thrives in that. We're going to get to hear her story today through our talking points of how she got there, what her journey's been like, and the resources that she has now available to women. And don't you worry, all those resources will be on our website at embracinglayers.com. But today we're going to get to know this woman. Eva, welcome to the Field Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. I'm looking forward to this conversation and appreciate you very much in the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, let's get right into it. Let's talk about your self-care journey. And I mean that really taking care of yourself, knowing your value, doing the things you need to do to fill your cup, and how that's unfolded, when you realized it was important. Tell us your story within this talking point.
Again, thank you so much for asking. You know, I worked in the corporate world for 29 years
Yeah.
and I was married to my job.
Mm,
I, I've never been married, no children, so I was married to my job.
mm.
And in 1998, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
And I was blessed, had to go through radiation treatment. And during that time, or back in those days, for me, I'd heard that if the cancer does not return within 5 years, you're considered a survivor. So
Yeah.
I was living to be a survivor.
Oh, wow.
Fifth year came, had a mammogram in December. Everything looked fine. And about 2 or 3 months later, I felt it felt like a little pea or kernel of corn in
Mhm.
in the same breast. Fast forward,
Mm.
I'll fast forward quickly. And it turned out to be breast cancer.
Oh, boy.
And when the doctor called, she said, my recommendation is that we remove the breast. Now, at that particular time, I said, no way. Again, fast forward, I ended up having a mastectomy.
Mm,
And eventually I left my corporate job because
mm,
I had so many setbacks. And it was like God was trying to tell me something. So when they offered a package or a buyout to anyone, I took it.
mm.
I had not planned on retiring, but I left. And then I became a professional volunteer for 5 years. I gave myself permission to take 5 years off so that I would not immediately started, start to look for something else. I became a
Yeah.
professional volunteer. And then I had this feeling of being stuck and
Mm,
anxious.
mm,
So I started praying and asking God, what's my purpose? I knew there had to be more to my life. I knew there was more to my life.
yeah.
And I would run the lakefront and I would cry and I would pray. But when I jog the lakefront, the good thing is that I get clarity. And
Yeah.
one day, that still small voice asked, Eva, what's important to you?
Mm,
I didn't know how to answer the question. I had to sit with it.
yeah.
And you talk about values, I am the values queen. So I set myself down. Now, this is a process.
Yeah.
And I identified, defined, and prioritized my top 5 values. Melissa, what I have learned is most people cannot name their top 5 values in order of priority.
Yeah.
And that started my journey of pursuing my purpose. I ended up in coaching school, and I'll share my top 2 values in order of priority. That's my relationship with God and helping other people at that time. But now I know is to create experiences and guide women to live the life they want.
Yeah. Yeah. And this has evolved. I mean, you just had an event at the end of March. It's about a month ago now that you hosted there, in Chicago. So this has become not just something you're passionate about, but something you've really put into action. You've been through so much. The cancer diagnoses. My mother-in-law was one of those women who had cancer in probably the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, was told the same thing, got the 5-year clearance. And then 15 years later, there she was again. And this time she did have the mastectomy. So that can really jar you because that was the language at the time. She thought she was clear. She still went in, got the checks, but it really can set you on these trajectories and catch you off guard. And I think it was such a good lesson. And the interesting thing is it really does kind of rewire what you're thinking. Like, wait a minute, this guarantee that I was given is only as good as the science and the knowledge that they have. And also at the end of the day, we don't know when our last minute or day is, but we also want to live in a way, whatever time we have left. I think it's such an awakening to like, hold on a minute. I've had a couple of warning calls here in terms of things that have happened in my life. It seems like that, especially that second time around, it really got your attention. I love this is self-care, giving yourself permission to take that intentional time off.
Yes.
That is an act of self-care. It's also a healthy boundary around, this is what I will and won't do in this time. I will give myself the space. I won't just jump back on the hamster wheel. I will be intentional. I will volunteer and give my time, and I will create and carve out. So it's such a great example of how self-care and boundaries coincide with each other when we're in touch with ourselves.
Yes.
And then when you go and name your values, and you're absolutely correct. I asked, this is one of the talking points, and we're going to revisit the values thing in depth here soon. But when I ask women key questions before they get on with me, you've know this already. I ask them to identify who they are, how they would describe themselves. We talk about values so many times when I'm having those pre-meet conversations. They're like, well, let me ask so-and-so. I'm like, no, I don't want you to ask so-and-so. I want you to ask you. And there's, sit with it if you need to. Think about that. But I want that to come from within you. You took the intention. And the beauty of that is it allows you to live out of those values. It allows you to know where it is you were intended to put your time. That it naturally creates boundaries for you because you know where you will and won't give your time and space to. It naturally creates a self-care model because you're giving to energy to things that you're aligned with. And so I think, I think that's such a beautiful day-to-day way. So many times we think about, and not that the surface things aren't important, like, absolutely. Like I have my daily movement, I get my water, I do those things. Those are important things for me, and moving my body and taking care of myself well. I fuel myself mindfully with good food. And also I had to find my way to actually my day-to-day work being aligned with who I was. That in and itself, and the effect it has on your mental, emotional, physical health when you're living in alignment versus not. Talk to me about the difference from that corporate hamster, I call it the hamster wheel because you're just running around.
Of course, yes.
Versus where you are now and the impact that has had not only on your, the values, like really like I said, lay out where the boundaries are and where you'll give your time, but talk to me about the impact it's had on your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health.
Wow. It is such a difference. First of all, I wouldn't trade anything for my journey.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that my journey's been easy, but what I learned is that when I left that corporate job, number one, the job no longer served me and I was being redirected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Far too often when things happen in our lives, we tend to allow them to define us versus refining us.
Ooh.
So this led me on a journey of being redirected so that I could step and live in my purpose. So now I make intentional decisions because I know who I am. When I was in the corporate world, to your point, that hamster, I was performing. But now I get the opportunity to show up, to really focus on the person within. I call it my internal leader, and I'm guided by that versus my external leader, which was the corporate world, and making decisions and choices around what everyone else expected of me. Now I get to make decisions and choices based on my internal leader. Therefore, I am aligned with what I am called to do. So I've been refined versus defined.
Oh, that is I love the way you put that. I haven't heard that before in that context. And that is such a great way. It's like there's so many narratives floating out around us in the world that we start hearing when we're very young, that we hear once we get into certain spaces. And we're constantly, I feel like, especially in the US, we're constantly chasing that thing that's supposed to be the thing that brings us all this happiness. And we don't stop to consider these questions that you've asked yourself. That when the hard thing happens, am I going to allow it to refine me or define me? Am I going to stop and, ask myself, what are my values? What do I care about? I'm giving all this time. I'm having these outcomes in my health that aren't good for me. Where do I need to shift? And you really took that intentional time to shift. What did you, in the 5 years that you were a working volunteer, which is super intentional time. And I know a lot of volunteers. I worked out in nonprofits that give as much or more time as a volunteer than they ever did to their jobs. But they're passionate about it. They want to be there. It energizes them. What did you learn about yourself in that 5 years? Besides, you've talked about the values, but what are some other key things you learned about yourself?
Well, first of all, I didn't even know who I was. Because think about it. You leave home, you go to school, you leave school, you get a job, you go into debt, you pursue a career.
Yep.
Right? That's it.
Yes.
You call it the hamster wheel. So you really don't take time to think about who you are and what you want for yourself. You just said it. We take on the role the world put on us. Family, friends, right? They define who we are and what we should do. And that's how we live our lives.
Yeah.
So when I left the corporate world, first of all, I was exhausted. I was mentally, physically exhausted because
Yeah.
I had been working all of my life. And then, having that second bout with cancer and never dealing with it emotionally. Because most of us do, women suppressing our feelings. We can handle it. We can handle it. So what I learned about myself is that I did not know who I didn't know myself at all.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When I started seeking my purpose, I was looking outside for all the answers. I'm listening to people. Maybe I'll hear something here. I'll go to this event when I had all the answers within me.
Yep.
And I started to learn, it was the process of beginning to learn that everything I needed and wanted was within me, not externally. So I learned to start looking within. That was the beginning of the process that led me to my values, that led me to my purpose, was to look within.
Yeah, that looking within piece. I talk about this a lot when I work with women. You're going to hear it in a different order today, but one of my last talking points that we'll get to is embracing your layers. I start there when I'm speaking, when I'm working in one-on-one sessions, when I'm doing workshops. We start with that piece because it's by learning and getting to know your layers, recognizing what it is you have and haven't processed. What have you stopped? Who are you? Has anybody ever asked you what you want, or have you just jumped on well-intended people in our lives, setting a trajectory for us that they believe will be healthiest and best for us, that many times don't stop and ask, how does this feel for you? Does this feel like something you really want to do? And so we get into adulthood and in different spaces, all of a sudden we hit into this thing like, hold on a minute. I never stopped to consider if this is what I actually want to be doing, if this is who I am and how I want to be spending my time, that it requires you looking within. I love what you said. It is so true. We have it all within us already, but we weren't necessarily taught to tap into that first. And that is the key to getting to know who you are, is understanding, embracing all the pieces and parts of your story, accepting them. You don't have to love them all, but a healthy acknowledgement of them. Then that leads you down the road of asking those important questions. What fills my cup? What nourishes me? What lights me up to get up in the morning? And what do I care about? What fills my cup and my resources? And how do I want to feel? I mean, those key things then lead you. That's all interconnected, but you can't get there if you don't sit with yourself long enough to start asking yourself. Sometimes can be difficult questions. We don't like sitting in the quiet because the noise comes up of what it is maybe we haven't dealt with yet or haven't asked ourselves.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important, the work that you're doing, having these conversations, because so many of us want to make changes in our lives. So many of us are stuck and we want to move forward. We just don't know how. So having these type of conversations, we need to have more of them. And we're having more of them now than ever before, because there are so many women that feel they're not worthy. They're afraid. They're still seeking validation from others. They don't know how to deal with their emotions. Their emotions are choking them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're carrying the load for everyone else. And they just don't know how to tap into the person within to even start.
Well, and that you hit it. That is what drove me to start these conversations. I got to age 50, I hit my own wall, and I realized we have to start talking about these things for ourselves and our own well-being, and also for the generations, our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces, our coworkers. It's like, okay, hold on a minute here. We're going to change the trajectory here of generations before us that were well-intended, but it's not serving us.
Mhm.
And we're going to start with ourselves, because when we do start with ourselves, everyone wins. They get the healthiest, most vibrant, aligned version of us. But it's so many times, you're exactly right, Feel like, I don't know where to start. I'm so overwhelmed. We're going to start with really basic questions that you aren't going to necessarily understand, but they're going to lead you down a road that's going to get you there. And that's why so many times I talk to people, I'm like, these are empowerment sessions, because I'm going to help lead you to what's already within you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you anything that's not already there. I'm just going to help you wake it up. And that's what you're doing as well. And that's why, I think that really leads nicely into, this is what allows us today to show up unapologetically and also support other women in doing so. For me, it had to start with, I had to quit apologizing for
Yeah.
everything, everyone else. Is that been true for you?
I don't know so much to stop apologizing to everyone else, but to stop, but to thy own self be truthful. Where I
Mm,
had to start with, and it's the basic fundamental question: who are you and what do you want?
yeah.
That's it. You ask me that. Who are you? Right? But in
Mhm.
order for me to be able to answer that, I had to be truthful with myself. Eva, what do you want out of this life?
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
want? And that was like, what is your purpose? What do you want? So many of us have suppressed what it is
Mm,
that we truly desire
yeah.
because someone made a comment years ago. You could never achieve that. Who do you think you are? Or we look at other women and we say, I can see how that would happen for them, but that would never happen for me.
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
So we suppress who we truly are, what it is we truly desire, and that's where it all starts. You have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
In some cases, we have suppressed it to the extent that we even forgot about it because
Yeah.
someone told us that we could never have it, we could never achieve it.
Yeah.
You
That
have to
is so
be honest
true.
with yourself.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think so many times it reminds me of a story that I've told before on here, where I was a junior in high school, and my dad was having a conversation with me about my college plans and what I was going to do. And he made the comment to me that I should be a teacher because it would be good for my family. I had no desire to be a teacher, zero, none whatsoever. And so I was like, well, I don't want to be a teacher. And two, why are you assuming I'm going to have a family? I mean,
See?
and I
Assumptions.
know,
Right.
exactly. And yes, I did end up going on and doing that. But for me, it's like, why is that automatically a thing? Just because I'm a girl or a young woman, why do we just go there? Why not ask me, so what are you passionate about? What gets you excited? I always knew I was passionate about women's wellness, women being safe, women being seen, known, and heard, mostly because I grew up in environments where they weren't.
Yes.
And I knew I wanted to be part of something different. That was never the question. I was told to do the same thing. I didn't end up doing the same thing. I got a business degree. I've ended up working in various ways throughout the years in human resources and nonprofits, and really being true to myself in a lot of different ways, but it wasn't until I got to age 50, I'm like, okay, I've collected all these experiences. What do I want to do what does it mean for me now, and what's missing?
Mhm.
You took the time to ask yourselves that question. So many times we don't ask. So ask your daughters, ask your nieces, ask your granddaughters, those young women who are interning for you at your
Yeah.
corporation. Ask them, are you excited about this? Has anyone ever asked you what you're truly
Mhm.
passionate about? What lights you up? Those are the things that allow you to then show up unapologetically. You know you deserve to be seen, known, and heard. You know that you have a right to pursue what it is you were created for.
Yes.
And so talk to me too about the work that for me, the work that you do is such an example of how you show up unapologetically for other women and the resources you provide. Talk to me about the evolution of those and what it is you provide now, and when you determined it was time to do that.
It's interesting you should ask that, and because I want to tell you about my summit that I just had, but I want to just talk a little bit about. So I went to coaching school. Let me back up a little bit. And I knew in coaching school that it's funny, there was an exercise that we did, your life purpose statement. And my life purpose statement was, I'm the voice that inspires others to embrace life. I couldn't even say it for 6 months because I was petrified. That little voice, that little saboteur said, who do you think you are? Who do you think is going to listen to you?
Yeah.
Right. But I continued to do the work. I created workshops. I would speak to women. I started a coaching business because I knew that was my purpose. And I have evolved over time because I tap into my internal leader. Right? So
Yeah.
I know now my purpose, right, is to guide women and create experiences and remind them of who they are so they can live the life that they want. So the last year, Memorial Day, true story, I declared. Now, I've always been a speaker, but I had not declared that I'm a speaker. And why not? Because in the 1990s at a corporate meeting, I was conducting the meeting, round table. One of the VPs sitting across from me wrote a note and passed it to the person next to him. And I could tell the way his hand moved that he wrote my name. The person looked at him, folded the note, nodded his head and left. After the meeting, they all left. I ran back. I picked up the note and said, Eva preaches to us. That suppressed my voice. I didn't want to be known as preachy. I wanted to fit in. And last year, Memorial Day, I'm in my bedroom and this fear came over me. Now, I'm a life coach. I'm very, very much in tune to my emotions and when they shift. And I don't ignore them.
Yeah.
What I do is I be with it. I listen, picked up the phone, called my friends, nobody picked up. So I had to be with that emotion. And I believe in God. And I said, God, what are you trying to tell me? The little voice said, you've done everything except one thing. And I said, what? Declare that you're an empowerment speaker. That's when I realized I had silenced that part of my voice. Although I was speaking, I had not declared it. Now, that led me on a journey that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the summit that I just conducted, March 28th, remember who you are. That was my journey. My internal leader took me on this amazing journey for me to remember who I am. But not only that, to teach me so that I could share this experience with other women, because everybody stands on our shoulders. We have carried the load for so many, but we don't do it for ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
We do and have whatever it is we desire because we have it within us. We just need to remember who we are.
Yeah,
That's been the evolution.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think so many things there. I think it's so important that when you never know how those voices are going to impact you. And also so many times we get that it scares us. We treat it as truth instead of just stopping them like, is that actually true? Yeah. Or is that just their perception? Is there some kind of, did they feel there's something going on in their own life where that felt like maybe it was something they needed to hear and they weren't ready for. So they decided to make you the problem instead of encountering themselves. I say all the time, and I had to learn this the hard way. If you're hearing something that makes you feel uncomfortable, and I'm not talking about things that are just inherently evil or cruel or bad. I'm talking about something that makes something shift in you. That's a clue. That's a clue that there's something there that's calling out attention to you. But it had this impact because we're told, especially as women, and you even more so, especially as a Black woman in a space where you're just trying to find your way and not ruffle any feathers because you've got this opportunity. And I call it weaponized gratitude that is used on us all the time. Well, you should be thankful for, and da, da, da. And so we proceed in that way, trying to not upset anything so we can continue on this successful, quote unquote, trajectory. And we don't stop and consider what's actually true, if this is actually aligned, because the systems weren't set up for us to. They want to keep us in a certain spot. And so, but that doesn't serve us. And that's why this showing up unapologetically piece to me is one of the most important components, because you have to do the work on yourself first, because you can't truly show up and support other women in this way, I don't think, without authentically doing the work on yourself first. Then that allows you to show up as your full self. It allows you to offer the resources that you know you were designed to. It brings in curiosity over judgment. When you run into someone who has a different story or path, you start asking more questions. How can I support you? How can I show up for you, rather than assuming you already know, because you're in curiosity and learning mode. And that's what you have done. I love, remember who you are. I think that is such an important question to continually come back to, because also it's going to change and evolve and grow over time. Yes. You may have a great, concept of who you were 20, 30 years ago, but that shifted. Experiences happened. And so continuing to ask ourselves those questions, I think, is so important too.
Yeah. And you said it. You have to, in order for you to live the fullest version of yourself, or to be your authentic self, you have to do the work. It's not easy. No. And that's why so many women choose not to, because you really have to tap into those emotions and vulnerability. Somehow, somewhere, we have been taught vulnerability is a sign of weakness. Vulnerability is a sign of strength, because guess what? Once you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to hide. And we're so afraid if we expose or show our emotions, it's going to be perceived as weakness. If we say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. That's not weakness. That's being honest with yourself. So you have to do the work. And so many of us have these deep, deep rooted emotions, or even childhood drama that we have experienced. And I'm always advising women, if you need help, get help. If you need a therapist, get a therapist. If you need a coach, get a coach. If you need a mentor, get a mentor. But you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to pursue what it is you desire, not from a selfish standpoint, but just like you uphold everyone else, you owe it to yourself to live the life that you want. And only you get to define what that is. No one gets to define that for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, and we have choice. No one gets to define that for you. You get to decide if you allow others to define it for you or not. That's a decision that we make. And so seeing it from a choice lens too, I want to go back to the values. You were able to, through this work, go back and identify your top 5 values. And that was an eye-opening moment for you. It gave you the foundation to live out the way you do today. Were any of these values a surprise to you? Talk to me about kind of the unfolding of that.
Not really a surprise, but that alone takes work.
Yeah.
Because you want to compromise. Even when I work with my clients and I start with values, right? Because most of us are seeking fulfillment. That's what it is. Most of us are seeking fulfillment. Like, some of my clients will come to me and they don't know how to articulate what they're feeling. But at the end of the day, most of us are seeking fulfillment. Values, that's your roadmap. Because my friends will call me and ask me a question. You know what I ask them? Is this aligned with your values or going against your values? Right? Because that's your values are your roadmap. But to get down to 5 and then to prioritize them, you really have to know what it is you want, because it doesn't come easy. It's a process. But once you do that, whenever you have to make decisions and choices, right? Is this aligned with my values or going against? And the reason it's 5, you get down to 5, because it forces you to stop compromising and negotiating with yourself. It forces you to make those tough decisions. But once you get nail those values, again, it's a process, right? It's your roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it's such a great tool that you can use to make decisions and choices based on what's important to you. Because if you don't make decisions and choices based on what's important to you, other people make decisions and choices for you.
Yes.
You become who they want you to become. And so many of us are living our lives from that lens versus what we want for ourselves. But values is the key.
Yeah, it is. It gives you clarity. It allows you to stop abandoning yourself because you ask yourself the question, is this in alignment with my values? If the answer is no, then the answer is no. And you're not abandoning yourself to please somebody else, to I don't want to disappoint them, or I don't want to make them mad. Well, if they really care about you and want to honor and respect you, then they will honor and respect that fact that this just doesn't align with my values at this time. Thank you so much for asking. And I think we're so afraid to do that. But when we know, I think once you do it, because I've done it, I've narrowed mine down to 3 at one point. I'm kind of back to 5 now, but it felt like this impossible task.
Yeah.
And also was so clarifying. And it did something that you said so important. It allowed me to quit compromising with myself. Yeah, I think that was I love the clarity of that. The next point I want to talk about, and you just said it, living out of our own expectations versus others. This helps you not to do that. But so many times we do. I think this internal leader versus external leader piece is such a key component of that. When you're trusting your internal leader, when you're living out of your values, it shifts you from living out of societal expectations to others. And there's such a freedom in that.
Right.
Talk to me about that experience for you as you experience that shift.
And first of all, for your listeners, I want you to recognize and realize we're talking about a process that happens over time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And continues to happen.
Yes. And if you are at that place and space in your life where you're really focusing on what it is you truly desire or living that highest version of yourself, number one, know that it's a process. Don't be hard on yourself. Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Right. And if you decide to make a decision and it's going against your values, if you're okay with that, then be okay with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you may decide this is going against my values, but for now, I am going to maintain where I am or stay in the space that I am. And that's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself some grace. But to answer your question, life is a process of evolution.
Yeah.
And once you tap into that person within and you learn that that person within is powerful, it has wisdom, protection, knows whatever you need, just like so many of us Google or use AI. This is your AI right here, right?
Yeah.
So the question you could ask yourself, am I living out what's been placed inside of me? Am I honoring that? Am I honoring what's been placed inside of me? Because you already know. And then just recognize it's a process. But here's the thing I also want you to remember, that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you, right?
Yes.
You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You are creative, resourceful, and whole, but it doesn't mean that you may not need help along the way as you go. And it's okay, but it's a process. Know what you want. And even, it's like anything else. When I talk about living the highest version of yourself, it's that woman you're meant to be. That's what I'm talking about. And then when your identity matches that woman you're meant to be, you're living at the highest version of yourself. But guess what? To your point, Melissa, it doesn't stop there, because that's the growth. Then you go to that next level, right?
Yeah.
Then you do that internal work So your identity align, and it's alignment, to your point. That's the word. It's
Yeah. 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 Thank you so much for that. I love what you said. This is such an important for me reminder. We are not broken. So many times we hear that word that we're damaged, that we're broken. And it's like, no, we're continuing to refine. We're continuing to grow, learn, unlearn. I mean, and allowing ourselves that freedom and that compassion and that empathy for ourselves is such an important part of this process, because no one's life is perfect.
no.
No one is perfect. And so we put this insane pressure on ourselves to show up perfectly. That's unattainable, and it's not realistic, and it's not authentic.
No.
And you said something so important I want to go back to too. When you live in the freedom of vulnerability, there's nothing to fear, because you're not you're not hiding anything. You're not scared of someone finding out something about you. And that's the strength, and that's the trust of that inner self. It's also an invitation to others to know you're a safe space and that they can do it too.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So when you are living that highest version of yourself, and I call it living out loud.
Yeah.
Give other women permission to do the same. Like if you've ever been in a room and the presenter asks a question, everyone looks around because they're waiting for that first person to jump out there, right? And then once that first person starts to speak, then everybody else feels comfortable enough.
Yep.
So you be that person that feel comfortable enough to be who you are now. And you talked about boundaries initially and habits, right? So when you are living that version of yourself that you're supposed to be, sometimes you have to set boundaries and even habits. Give yourself some grace, because when you're focusing on breaking old habits, you have to replace it with new habits, and that takes time.
Yeah.
So always remember to give yourself some grace, and everyone is not meant to be in your life forever.
Yeah.
People are brought into your life sometime for a season and a reason. So don't try to hold on to something or someone that no longer serves you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such an important point for us to remember. And I think sometimes when that happens, it's like no one has to be the bad guy. No one has to have done anything wrong. Sometimes there's just a season and a time, and that's okay. And you move forward from that. And it doesn't lessen the value of the time that you had in that space with them. Thank you. That's so good. So important. Talk to me. We've really talked about it throughout the time, but that embracing layers piece, you've really been able to do that. All the parts and pieces of your story, the hard stuff, the beautiful stuff, the messy stuff in between. I talk to women a lot, and I had to do this myself of like, I had to get okay with the fact that, there are pieces and parts that decisions I wish I hadn't made, things I wish hadn't happened to me. And also, that's part of life. Get curious about it rather than judgmental about it. And that really brought me a freedom when I got curious and like, well, yes, I can see why my 18-year-old self made that decision. I don't love it. I wouldn't recommend doing it again. And also considering where she was at that point in life, I get it now. I'm not going to have any more shame around that. I'm going to learn from that, but I'm going to meet her where she is. And so many things happen to us in life, and we get to choose how we respond to them. And part of that, I think, is just embracing all the pieces and parts that make up your story. So talk to me a little bit more about that, the ability for you to embrace your layers. I mean, 2 bouts with cancer, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. And that can really take people out. You talked about not just the physical, but the emotional and mental impact that has. So talk to me about embracing all the layers of your journey.
The one word I learned that I use two: perspective and growth. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
So when I was going through my cancer journey, I suppressed my emotions. But what I learned, and I shared this before, I wouldn't trade anything for my journey. Because
Yeah.
now that I look back, it was a growth opportunity, an opportunity for me to be redirected so that I could serve and live my purpose. Had I
Yeah.
not gone through that, had I not learned to tap into the person within, had I not learned to trust myself,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
had I not learned to love myself and to be okay, I don't make mistakes, right? What I do is there are times where opportunities for growth are created. See, it's
Yeah.
about perspective. So instead of
Yeah.
saying I made a mistake, boy, that was a big growth opportunity for me, right? And
Yeah.
when we look at our
Yeah.
lives, life gives us the experience, the skills, and the knowledge we need to do what it is
Mm.
we want to do. So,
Yeah.
perspective, if you look at your life and you look at your life from a growth and learning and stretched opportunity,
Mhm.
then you embrace it differently. Versus
Yeah.
when you say I made a mistake, that sounds negative. And if you
Mhm.
watch someone's body language, I made a mistake, right?
Mhm.
I say, yes, that decision was not or is not aligned with me, but it was a growth opportunity.
Yeah.
Perspective,
Well, and your voice intonation and your body language is completely different.
yes, that's
And
it.
that speaks volumes. Oh my
So
gosh, so good.
that's the grace to give yourself. Give
Yeah.
yourself some grace. You have everything you need. Life has taught you everything you need to be, do, and have whatever it is you want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Ah, so good. So good. All right. Eva, you live out feel, what I call feel, finding empowerment, embracing layers. Your life is really a great example of that. Talk to me about how these shifts and intentional decisions you've made have impacted your relationship with yourself as well as your relationship with other people.
So when you're living at that highest version of yourself and you're honest with yourself, and it's first of all, it's contagious.
Yeah.
What you
Yeah.
don't
I want what you have. People say that.
Yeah, because you give others permission to live out loud, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And here's the other thing that I recognize and realize, and a woman reminded me of this the other day. I truly believe I'm put here to serve.
Hmm.
So I don't look at my life as it's about me.
Mm.
And that allows me to embrace life fully. And it allows me to grow. It
Yeah.
allows me not to get stuck. It allows me not to be defined by my circumstances, but to be refined
Yeah.
because I know it's not about me.
Yeah.
It is so
Yeah.
not about me. What is about me is for me to show up my best, do my best, and be my best every single day.
Yeah.
That's the part of me that I can control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it takes it when you realize that it takes the pressure off of how you show up every day because it's like I am a piece of a humongous puzzle and I'm accountable to that piece of the puzzle I am to show up, but there's so many greater bigger things going on that I'm pouring into that is what is actually about.
Yeah. And then once you get to that point, once you truly embody that,
Mhm.
I don't want to use the word easy, but it's a natural part of who you are every single day.
Right. Right. It doesn't feel like you're not it's it's not extra effort to do what you're doing because you're in alignment. Not that challenges don't come your way, but
Of course they do.
they still feel you're not living out of alignment with yourself because life is hard enough and it's going to throw you enough curveballs. And then you add that other layer of not living true to yourself. It just
Mhm.
complicates it even more.
Yeah.
Whereas, I know there's a contentment that comes with it
Yes.
that allows you to not respond in such a hyper vigilant state all the time because you are living true to who you are. You're not running from anything.
Right.
There's just so many things within that that are so powerful. So good. All right, As we wind up our conversation here, share with me 5 activities that nourish you.
Oh, I start my day being intentional. I start my day um, prayerfully,
Mhm.
being grateful. I like to at least exercise 2 or 3 times a week. I like to read.
Mhm.
Um, and I just like sometimes just to sit and be still. I
Mm.
have a really good support group. Surround yourself with people. I have a really good friend of mine. She holds me up when I need to be held up and believes in me. And yeah, I make sure that people that are in my circle or are people that believe in themselves, believe in me, and believe in doing good. So
Mm. And it does matter who you surround yourself with.
yeah.
That's such a great energy and such a great resource. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
And the last thing is I'm conscious of what I put in my body. That's the last thing.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
conscious of what I put in my body.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And I think sometimes life forces into that. But you
Yeah.
also realize how much, if I'm going to honor myself and live in a way that allows me to show up how I want to, then I need to take care of this vessel in a
Yeah.
way that's going to give me the energy and resources I need to. So it's such an important piece of that. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Oh, first of all, fulfilled,
Mm,
healthy, contributing, making a difference, evolving, growth, because I want to continue to evolve. I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to make a difference. I want to continue to love myself and believe in myself and to be open, respectful, so I can love others and they can love me.
I love that. So good. All right, Eva, where can people find you and follow you? And all of this, again, will be on our resources page at embracinglayers.com. But share with us right now where that is.
My website is evamkennedy.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I think it's at Eva M. Kennedy.
Okay.
Yeah, but my website will take you,
All right.
evamkennedy.com.
Perfect. All right. One last thought for our listeners before we wrap up today.
I'm sorry, say that again.
One last thought for our listeners as we wrap up today.
2, number
Okay.
1, trust yourself.
Mm.
Number 2, you deserve to live an amazing life, and only you get to decide. Only you get to decide what that amazing life looks like.
Mm. Perfect. That's such a perfect way to wrap it up. Eva Kennedy, you're a treasure. I'm so glad we connected. I'm so thankful to have you here on this platform with me and for the resources you provide and the way you show up in the world. Listeners, go back. There's so many gems here. Take a look at Eva's resources. Listen back to this episode. Start thinking about yourself and ways that you can show up in a healthy way for yourself. Start with one thing. Start with that one thing that really, really got your attention today, because you are valuable, you are worthy, and you get to choose. Just like
Yeah.
Eva said, you get to choose. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time here on the Feel Podcast. Hello, and thank you so much for being with us today on this episode of the Feel Podcast. If you would like more information on how you can apply these talking points that I share with our guests in each episode to your own life, really utilize this Feel framework, go to embracinglayers.com, fill out our contact form, and let's set up a free 30-minute consultation to talk about how you can start living your most authentic, organic, healthy, feel-fueled life. Thanks again for being with us today. We'll be back to you soon with another episode here on the Feel Podcast.